You are welcome back to the programme. Now we're going to talk about a little bit of, I suppose, the history of Ireland, really. And my guest is Michael Fortune, who has produced the Irish Dresser and Folklore calendar for 2022, and he's on the line. You're very welcome to the programme, Michael.
Thanks, Maria, for having me.
And I suppose the thing about these, before we had fitted kitchens, every home had a dresser.
Absolutely, yeah, and it wasn't that long ago, really, in the scheme of things. I suppose the 70s and 80s was the nail in the coffin for the poor old dresser, and many of them were they ended up falling down or being broken up, or some were sent off in box loads and ship loads to America. But yeah, that was the big change.
And as you found, they're like in the course of your research, they're like little mini museums, really, aren't they?
Yeah, they're amazing, really, when you think about it. And any of your listeners now, they may have one still. I even saw the shift taking place in my own grandmother's dresser here in Wexford, and I noticed that I saw a photograph of her in the 70s, and sure, it was like her fitted kitchen. And then sure, they got presses and they got whatever things in the kitchen. But it became a little museum where people would put up. It started to notice things like where the grandchildren would bring back little things from maybe a school tour, or maybe there was grandchildren over in England to come back with a little souvenir, and you'll spot that. I've spotted that in Waterford, and I've seen it up and down the country, where they became almost like little, like a little museum display in your kitchen.
And you have in your calendar, you have some from Waterford as well featured, don't you?
I do. I've got and Waterford was in it last year as well. It's because of the Arts Office in Waterford County Council, Waterford City and County Council there. They would have commissioned me a couple of years ago, Maria, to do the research on Waterford. So there's two lovely dressers. There's one. It belongs to Tom Lacey, and it was a gorgeous dresser. He's I think it's Jonestown, if I get the town slang correct. But basically, it's a dresser he had in the family home. He said there was a pilot and reared in the house, and they built a new house, and they didn't want to move the dresser. So what he did as a young lad, he decided he'd make a replica of that dresser. So he actually made a replica of the old dresser and moved into the new house, and then he has the old one left there in the house. So even when you step back into the old house, you're stepping back in, it's got all the Sacred Heart pictures and all around it. So it's actually an interesting one, I find. I was thinking at the start, Irish community people, but mostly women now will have these, because there were important things to women. But it's funny, it's a chord with the men, because they start remembering their grandmothers and their mothers and their aunts and things like that. That's one thing that struck me over the years of researching these. And
they often made them as wedding presents for their wives, didn't they?
They did, yeah. And there's actually one of the dressers is from Ferrybank. It's across the bridge there from me. It's in South Kilkenny. But it's a wedding present dresser. And again, this woman actually, I knew her family up. I met her family up in Mayo. She's a Mayo woman, but she married a South Kilkenny man. But when she moved down, she found it out in the shed, and she said, no, that's not that was back in the 70s. So her name was Josie Murphy. So she brought it back inside anyway and reinstated it back in the home. But that was made for her husband's mother and father as a wedding present. And again, that was a common thing as well, this idea that the man would make it, and sure, if he wasn't handy enough, he'd get someone else to make it for him. But it was almost like a love token in the home.
And they weren't as flahulic or had as much access as we do to things now. So sometimes they'd be made out of maybe an old crate or something, and you found traces of that, didn't you, when you went looking at them?
Yeah, you'd notice that in particular. When I always kind of find most of the dressers got a lick of paint, and then she'll got loads of licks of paint, and if you peel them back, you'll find about 50 different colours that was in the house over the years. You know yourself. And I actually love the layers of paint, and you find the drips, marks, and where it dripped down, and that kind of stuff. But yeah, when you open up the doors, sometimes at the bottom of them, you'll always find it. Sure, I suppose people said to themselves, why am I painting the back of the doors? So you'll start to spot little things like maybe where there was a little piece of an old tea chest, or maybe an old crate that someone got somewhere, and then see the writing on it. You'll also come across even people's names and initials like that. That's lovely as well. When you come across that, you might come across someone's grandfather's name that made it, maybe, and it could be back to the 1890s, could be up to there was a kind of a particular spot that kind of dipped back in the 50s, and then maybe you remember them yourselves. You remember those kind of cabinets you got, those kind of more plywood ones, were very light with the fold down door, and the kind of there was a kind of a glass cabinet that was like
the China cabinets.
It was a kind of we just called it a press here in Wexford. It was just like had a great you'd have glass doors up on top. They're kind of vintage and cool now, and they had these little fans on them, and then there was a little door would fold down, and you cut the bread on that. But that was the last of the kind of the mass produced dressers. That was when factories start to produce them, or businesses start to produce them.
And I thought it was sad when I read that they like, and we've all seen this, I think, like you'd look in someone's shed and there's this poor forgotten dresser, and it's not forgotten, but it's banished out to the shed when the fitted kitchen was put in, and there's old tins of paint on it now, and it's just relegated to storage out in some outyard somewhere.
Yeah, you come across those, the length and breadth of the country. I've come across a couple in Waterford as well. Yeah, but it's exactly as you say. You see tins of paint, and you rusty tins of paint and vice grips, and you wouldn't know what. Especially in farms and outhouses where there may be an old farm, but someone may have acquired a second farm and they wouldn't have use for it. And literally, I've walked into some of them, and you couldn't budge to be covered in dockets from the 1950s and 60s. I've come across one where you come across ones to be kind of get a bit of use, but then the ones that would break your heart would be sometimes a little bit would be you'd see maybe a note someone bring you to an old house, and you'd see the poor creators bits and pieces still left on it or falling off it. Yeah, it's got a break. But I've included this year. No, I didn't. The dresser is lovely. The calendar it's lovely and bright, and every month there's a different dresser and different folklore dates. But in the middle, I have a section on abandoned dressers, just a pull-out poster. Yeah, they're kind of nice. It's interesting visually to look at, and hopefully maybe it'll raise a few questions as well, and make people think a little bit about it and create more awareness about kind of that vernacular stuff that we have all around us that we sometimes
because they can tell so much about the past, can't you? Even like peeling back the layers of paint, as you say. But your main job is collecting folklore, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I do every single day of the week, and I use it on well, obviously when I'm out and about when we can, but a lot of stuff is online now. I run a page called Folklore.ie, and we'd always be sharing stuff. But one of the things, Maria, I realised was that. I kind of realised that all these dates in my head from different things, even things like when you'd visit St. Declan's Well down in Ardmore, or that was when you used to have things like that. So I started to sprinkle each month with all those dates, and little things like when to put up your Christmas tree, when to take down your Christmas tree, or when to put up the May bush, or when to make pancakes, and then little things around the weather. So they're lovely little Irish things that kind of bring you through the year. Every time you flip from January to February, there's maybe about 20 little things on each page.
That's absolutely lovely, and I suppose a fair amount of work went into it.
Yeah, it was huge. Like I did it last year, and I was on your show here, but just chatting to Damien about it last year, and I was blown away because it was a huge response. We're self-employed. We're small producers. This is a small production, but we sold out 3 times, which we're delighted. But this year I got it printed a bit earlier, and I've got boxed them still under my stairs here. So I hope they'll get good homes over Christmas.
And how do people get them?
Yeah, well, come here to me. There's two ways. One way is actually, luckily, the book centre in Waterford and the book centre in Kilkenny stock them, and also Cans in Kilkenny. So they're the 3 local stockists. And then if you can't get into town or any of those places, you go to the dresserproject.ie, and I have all the lists and prices there, and I'll ship anywhere in Ireland or anywhere in the world to you.
Because it would make a lovely Christmas present for people.
Yeah, it is, and it's kind of funny. I've noticed this year as well. I've even noticed there was a big increase in the States this year because we're just up. Every day I'm shipping over posting bundles every day of the week. But it's lovely because I get all those lovely personal messages back, and then you get some poor old creator ring you up and talk to you about the dresser that they had. But that's all. Come here, that's all part of what I do. You talk as well as you listen. But it's a lovely thing, and I do think it is. There's a kind of a resonance to it which kind of hit with people. And I think the dates are important too. I think they're nice because sometimes you get calendars and diaries, and you have a bank holiday in Singapore. And just I've nothing wrong with a bank holiday in Singapore, but I say to myself, little things here for ourselves that we do here. It's important too.
It's a lovely project, and thanks a million for coming on to talk to me about it, Michael.
Lovely. Thanks a million, Maria.
See you. Bye-bye. That's Michael Fortune there, and it's called the Irish Dresser and Folklore Calendar for 2022. I think it would make a lovely gift for somebody, and as he said, you can get it in the book centre if you want to do that.
At Argos, get